Hello and welcome to another Spirit of Nature Art video tutorial. And today we're going to be working on this wonderful piece here in my altered book art journal. And this is a great example of why I like art journaling so much, because when I sat down to do this piece, I had absolutely no plan as to what I was going to do at all. I took this piece of paper out of the altered book and I sat there and I thought about what I needed to get out of myself. And on this occasion, it was frustration. I had been working on something out in the garden that just hadn't been going according to plan, and I was feeling really frustrated. And so I thought, how am I going to work through this? And art journaling was my way of doing it. So I started off here just by adding some washi tape to the center of the spread because there were some holes there. But once I added it, I thought, you know what, actually I could start to use this as part of the structure of the page. So I tore up some more of that same washi tape and just started to play around with where I wanted that on the page, just working really instinctively where it felt right. And just starting to build up a bit of that background, both background interest from the pattern on the washi tape and also texture as well. And as you'll see, I play around a fair bit to find where I want those pieces to go, and it is very instinctive, just placing them where it feels right, moving them around until I'm happy with that composition. And finally, I'm happy with how that is looking. So I'm taking some watered down white gesso here and just starting to soften those two aspects of the page now. So the background text on the book page and also that washi tape, just still finding another bit of washi tape to add there. And just starting to blend the two together a little bit. I'm squirting a little bit of water on the page as and when I need to, just to help that gesso move around the page a little bit more smoothly, but nothing technical here, literally just using my finger to blend things in, sending some of that text into the background so that what I'm going to put over the top will pop even more. Just dabbing off with a paper towel here to add just a little bit of texture to that gesso as well. And that gesso is also going to coat the page so that I get different uptake of the materials I'm going to use. And then I chose these two stencils. I didn't spend any time thinking about it. I literally just turned around and grabbed the two stencils that were right next to me, and I'm using my modeling paste here just to create some texture through those stencils. And you can see I'm not using the whole stencil, I'm just using part of it. Kind of want to frame that side of the page there. So I'm just going back in with that stencil again, a little bit of modeling paste, and just putting it where I feel it's going to balance the page at its best. And then over on this other side here, I've got this beautiful sacred geometry stencil, and again just using my modeling paste to be able to get that texture and pattern onto my page. And once I take that stencil off, just softening the edges a little bit with my palette knife and my finger, just to make sure I don't get any hard edges around that pattern. And now I'm coming in with, again, I just picked up the stamp that was next to me. I think I had a few products that I brought home and hadn't used yet. So I'm just using my Archival ink here in a kind of rusty colour. And I'm using Archival ink because I know that I am going to be adding some distress inks on the top, which are water soluble, and I don't want this to run. I've just given it a bit of a dab as well with a baby wipe just to soften it a little bit. And now I'm using, I think this is charcoal archival ink with this other stamp as well from the same set. I will put the details of the stamp set in the comments below. And I just thought that stamp kind of mirrored a little bit the sacred geometry pattern from the stencil. And now, as I said, coming in with some distress ink sprays. I think Villainous purple and picked raspberry. Look at those colours, aren't they amazing? Just squirting a little bit of water on and moving the page around, and because I'm impatient, drying it with the heat gun. And just going back in and adding some more of that stamp, just because I kind of liked what happened when the inks hit it. And over the other side here, using, I think this might be prize ribbon. I will double check the colour and put it in the section below. Same principle, spraying it on, a little bit of water, moving it around, dabbing off the bits I'm not happy with, and just kind of seeing where it goes. Helping it to pick up the texture from that modelling paste and the stencil. And again, drying that off with the heat gun, moving the paper around as I do. And it's at this point where I kind of start to realise what this spread is telling me. That left-hand side of the page, the dark blue with all of those lines that feel a little bit like a maze, is my frustration. And on the other side of the page, that beautiful sacred geometry pattern, those beautiful pinks and purples, feel a little bit more like that lovely calm space that I was desperately wanting to get back to. And I just want to deepen that blue colour, so I'm going in and adding some more, but not watering it down this time. So just going in and giving that another squirt, drying it as I do. And allowing that colour to really sink into the modelling paste as well, because as you'll see, the modelling paste does take up some of that colour as well, not just the background. And then I'm in with two matching distress ink pads. So I am just edging the page. Those of you who've watched my videos before will know this is the thing I do when I'm not quite sure what to do next. This gives you that bit of breathing space to sit back and look at the page whilst you're still working on it, but without having to think about what you're doing. And it just gives your brain that bit of space just to come up with ideas as to what to do next. And also when you frame the page like this, it starts to bring everything together, so it feels more like a together thing that you're working on, rather than lots of separate elements. And so whilst I was doing that, I decided I wanted to put a bit of gold on. So this is just normal gold acrylic paint. I've watered it down slightly, and I'm just dabbing my finger into it, and then I am giving it the gentlest rub over the top of that modelling paste. I'm not trying to block out that blue colour. I'm not trying to get big blobs of that paint there. It's all, I just want it to catch the texture of that modelling paste, so we get real small bits of that gold just highlighting where the texture is there. So it's a little bit like doing a brass rubbing, but we have to be really, really, really gentle with our finger. So this is a great way of being of testing your patience, really. And I'm about to do exactly the same thing on the other side of the page with white gesso. First of all, just softening the area in between the frustrated side of the page and the calm side of the page, just getting rid of some of the where the paint has run. I really wanted that middle section to feel like a real divide between those two areas. So I'm just using the gesso first of all, just to kind of almost highlight that central section, and then I will go in and use that in the same way as I did with the gold on the sacred geometry symbol. Again, just using a very, very light touch just to pick up the kind of the real top bit of the texture from the modelling paste there. You can't always see it perhaps necessarily on the video, but you will with the shots at the end of the finished product, where you'll see the highlights from the gold and the white where they just touch the top of the modelling paste. So just going in and doing that here now. And it's one of those things that you can't do heavy-handedly. You have to do mindfully. Small amounts, layer it up. It's a great way to slow yourself down. Just working on this page, I remember at this point already starting to feel so much calmer after the frustration of the morning. And that is the beauty of art journaling. And this is the bit where I forgot to press play on the camera. You can see I stamped this beautiful dove using my Archival ink and the Dina Wakley stamps. Again, I'll leave the stamps in the comments below, and also going in with the this is also Dina Wakley white acrylic gloss spray, but I'm dipping my paintbrush in because what I want to do is help my dove really pop out from the background. So I'm going to paint her with that lovely white gloss acrylic, and because it's gloss it really will stick out from that much more matte background. So I will do a couple of coats just to be able to help it really pop from the page and give that really lovely, nice, bright white gloss finish. And whilst I've got the gloss acrylic ink there, I'm just going to add some white splashes as well, just to add those little highlights. And now the highlights are there, I want to add some shading, particularly to this area over on the left hand side of the spread, which of course, if you remember, is all about frustration. So I wanted that to feel much darker. So I'm just going in with a charcoal pencil and just drawing some edging around some of those lines there, and using a water brush just to activate it. And I'm doing that for a long time, so I edit that out for you, so you can just start to see that whole section there gets a lot darker. And then I want to do completely the opposite on the other side, because this is that lovely place where I feel lifted because of the calmness. So I'm using a white chalk pencil, and I'm going to do the same thing, but adding in highlights rather than shading. So I'm just starting off by going around the edge of the page there, particularly that corner. And then I'm going in and using that chalk pencil on those solid petals to start with, in the kind of, I guess, the negative space of that stencil, and just really highlighting those. And as I use that pencil, I'm also using a paper stub just to soften and blend that pencil in as well. And I'm just also going to do some of those circles. I'm just picking out some of those circles, particularly where they are connecting those solid petals. And again, once I go around it, I'm then going back over it with the paper stub just to soften and blend it. now just going back in and highlighting some more of those petals and circles, just until it feels balanced. I didn't want to do the whole thing, but I also wanted to help it to feel balanced as well. And just a little bit more white chalk pencil in the top corner there, mostly to cover up the teeth marks from where one of the cats decided to have a little nibble before I'd finished. And now using a blue chalk pencil just to soften where that blue finishes at the top there and bring it across onto the other side of the page, and add some shading to our beautiful dove there. Shading's one of those things, I always say, it does those two opposites. It helps something pop out from the page at the same time as helping it feel like it's settled into the page. It's an odd way that it does both, but it makes such a difference. And again, just using the paper stub just to soften that chalk pencil line. And I'm going to go in and use the white chalk pencil along the bottom of the dove there. So we've got shading on the top and those highlights along the bottom. And you'll just see I snipped there the top off my paper stub to get rid of the blue colour before I used it on the white. Otherwise the blue would have just transferred and that white would not be looking very white at all right now. Now in adding in some of that chalk shading and highlighting, I've lost the crispness of the edge of the stamp of that dove. So I'm just going in with my Micron pen there in a kind of navy blue to match the colours I've used on the page and the original ink that I stamped it with. And I'm just going over those lines. And the beauty of this is that it's a kind of scribbly edged stamp anyway. So I can be a little bit scribbly with my pen too, and add in a few little extra flourishes as I go. It just felt like something was missing, so I have brought in another stencil, those same two distress inks again, so that Wilted Violet, but also I want to soften it as well, so I've got my baby wipe here, particularly softening the edge and then just dabbing over the top of it. So you can see instantly that turns it from feeling like something that stands out from the page to it looking like something that's been there the whole time. And now going in with the blue to match the blue side and just add a little bit of that lovely mandala pattern at the top there. And again, going in with my baby wipe, just dabbing it. I don't want to smear it, I'm just dabbing it just to give it that instant aged look. And here's the finished article. You can see I wrote peaceful on there, just did that with my little stamps, but you can see those details of the shading there, what happens when you use the white and the gold there. You can see that original stamping. And I think it looks beautiful in my altered book journal here. I'm so pleased with this. I had no idea what I was doing when I sat down, but it certainly helped me process that feeling of frustration. And it's now a wonderful part of my altered book journal here. Having one of these pages helping to process something. And that, of course, is the point of art journaling. So I hope you like this spread in my art journal. As you'll see, we have only a few more pages left to go, so do come back and look out for the next page.